Good morning. Welcome to Frank's School, 138th day of the 6th year, first video. Just say no. Degrow building. Third video devoted to it. But I'm going to say and more because I'll talk some about building. I'm a carpenter. Yeah, I build. But there's going to be more too. But I have been going fast. I've been speaking fast and I've been covering a lot of ground fast. At least one more time I'm going to do that. All right, just say no. But in this video, you'll get maybe a better look at how truly extreme my ideas about this are. And yet I'm quite ready to defend them. I'm going to go fast, I think. The phrase, the arrogance of unfastenable fasteners, occurred to me. There's an arrogance involved in that, I feel. That if you build something, you fasten it together in such a way that it cannot be unfastened, unfastenable. Well, that's arrogant because it's saying that, well, this is the final thing. You basically destroy the material in building what you're building. That material, as separate material, has ceased to exist. It's only the thing that you've built. And so all you've got is the landfill, fire, whatever. I regard that as arrogant, and I apply it to myself. If I build something, the odds are very good that I'm going to change my mind about it or get a better idea later, or someone else will come along and they'll be able to use the material. They don't want what I built with it, but they could use the material. So if they unfasten it, I've done an awful lot of that. When you run into rivets, though, that's a problem. You got to grind them off. They're pretty hard. There's such a thing as double nutting, or you put two nuts on a bolt, draw them against each other. There's also nuts called jam nuts, which are a little bit better that way. I'm going to erase stuff because it's just easier for me. Even in timber framing, even back in the old days, when they pinned things, they'd have a joint and then they'd put a wooden peg through it to pin it together. But they would purposely make it slightly off-centered so that pin would crush and kind of go around a corner instead of just straight through, so you can't just bump that pin back out very easily. Even that, it's possible to run a pin through and then a peg through there and then a pin through that to hold it in place. But it was done even back then. There's a beam out there in the cherry tree house. It's 40 foot long out of pine, and it has every 2 foot it's got a mortise. So that's 20. There's 40 mortises in it. The rafters were pinned, tenons came in, and I remember sitting on top with a big, as I disassembled that building and brought it down here and put it back up again, I disassembled that. I didn't actually break any of them. I had a big punch and I pounded those pegs out, and I managed to get them out and got that back up there and got them back in, and I think I even used a lot of the same pins. Anyway, that's maybe neither here nor there. But anyway, draw pinning in timber framing, it can be undone, but it's an example of a certain amount of arrogance, I feel. Pallets, I use so many pallets. Well, the decking boards are almost invariably put in with spiral shank nails or something. Those pallets, there's no thought about how that material is going to be used later on. When they wear out, they get ground up into mulch or whatever. Charles, my father-in-law Charles, he's been dead many years. He died early. It's a shame. But when I was working on his barn, I remember asking him once, well, I was repairing it, and I said, what should the nailing schedule be? How often do you think I should nail these boards that I'm putting down to fix it? Because I was worried about my daughter as a little girl falling through it. I was working on it. He said, well, as few as possible. And he was so right. I hadn't thought of that. I'd studied a little bit of architecture, nailing schedule. I knew the phrase. And he said, well, use as few nails as possible. And yes, that's exactly right. And I've done that ever since. That was like the wisdom of one of those people that I've listed before. The aesthetic. Now, you're going to have to wait on that. So as I start to say, get rid of all this stuff and don't do it. And how do you come up with something then that's pretty? Well, wait. I think I can show you that the aesthetic can be changed, I hope. You're going to just have to wait, I think. But I did want to point out that timber framing, that aesthetic never went away, even though people ceased to build things like that. I've commented on that before. They'll build a house or a restaurant or whatever, this standard modern way, and then fasten boards on there to make it look as if it were timber framed. Interesting where that aesthetic just refused to die. Infrastructure. Trump at the moment is, I don't know how many billions, trillions of dollars he's going to put in infrastructure. That, now I'm back to the and more. That's a real problem because I think of Joseph Tainter's theory about complexity. Repairing the American infrastructure is going to cost so much that it could end up disrupting the whole world financial system because of bankruptcy. I mean, it can't be afforded. There comes a point where systems get so complex, says Tainter, that they collapse. And you might see it in the infrastructure. And, I'll have everything that's coming now, probably I'll have almost everything. I'll have more to say about later, but maybe not just now. The nature of transportation, if you degrow your approach toward transportation, that infrastructure is a whole different situation, very different, but it would be very extreme. And I just say, I just don't want to take too long with this stuff right now. Don't go anywhere. that would be it. All right, North Korea. I have North Korea down there because for two reasons really, but Kim Jong-un's sister has shown up on the scene, and I think that's so fascinating because this woman, I know very little about her, but she's an attractive woman, I think a lot of people would probably say. But I look at details. I look at how she smiles. I look at how she dresses. I look at how she walks. And I look that she doesn't put lipstick on and paint herself up. Women and fashion. And I think about her in contrast to, say, Donald Trump's, his two wives, his children, the kind of women he surrounded himself with, all painted up and all that fashion and stuff. You could say that there's a case where fashion, if it were to degrow, well, the aesthetic is there because I think most people are going to admit that, well, especially after looking at her brother and seeing him all the time, she's attractive. I see a little bit of the same thing all the time among the Mennonite women. I just thought I'd mention that. And as far as lights are concerned in North Korea, I might have mentioned this before. I don't think I dared to. But when you look at the globe at night and you see all the lights and how New York City looks like a flash bulb going off, and you look at that, you rarely see North Korea because it's dark. There aren't a lot of lights. And that might be used as an example of how undeveloped North Korea is. I think of it as a case of a certain morality that the dark parts of the globe have, in that they are not in the process of busily destroying the planet with waste and energy usage. A bold thing to say, but you see I'm extreme. Women, well, their attitude toward fashion, I'm going to go so fast with this. Kitchens, how do you degrow a kitchen? Well, get rid of the electricity. You don't actually need a freezer, a refrigerator, a coffee maker, a microwave, certainly any of those electric appliances. You don't need them. And if you've got a kitchen range of whatever kind, you really only need 2 burners, 1 in desperation, but 2 should be plenty. And your lights, you better put the sink. Well, carry your water in, heat it on your burner, and you do need a sink to wash stuff in, but have a bucket underneath it. You don't need the plumbing, and then just take it out and throw it out to the chickens. I mean, there are ways, and there were ways, and they can come back. Household, maybe. There, I'd just say the vacuum cleaner. You don't need it. A lot of women said, I couldn't live without a vacuum cleaner. Oh, yes, you can. A broom and a mop. Yeah, there's ways. Gardening. How do you degrow gardening? Well, use no fossil fuels. No, of course, no pesticides or herbicides or fertilizer, organic gardening, of course, but also don't use any fossil fuels. No lawnmower, no rototiller, no plow. No, it's possible, and actually has been done again and again. Training, physical training. Guys will get in a car, drive to work out on a machine. Just go for a walk, or better yet, go out in your backyard with a shovel and a pick maybe, and dig a hole until you're worn out. And then the next day, go out and fill that hole. And then the next day, empty it again, dig it out again, dig the hole again. And then the next day, fill it in again. You'll get more exercise and be healthier from doing that than all the rest, and you won't really do anything damaging at all. Extreme, I mean, that's just one idea. Your diet and your cooking, if you did what I said to the kitchen, it would have to change completely. You don't really need canned goods either. Dry goods is really quite enough. And as far as baking is concerned, you don't need that oven. Use the village oven for baking your bread and stuff. I'm going fast. I could explain these more and give examples, but a household, I guess I have it done twice. Shopping. Well, all I'll say about shopping is go once a week, no more than once a week. Pick a day, the day that the market goes on. Like I knew in Brazil, the feira, the Gigi feira, the day of the feira, where basically everybody went to town. That'd be a good day. And now this all is so extreme, and it could sound so ridiculous and disastrous, but I say no. A new culture is possible, and this is going to be the hardest thing to believe of all, I suppose, is that new culture is going to be better, or it can be. It can be better. People can be healthier, they can be happier, and much more. But I'll get onto that later. At the moment, no. Bye for now.